Hi, I'm Nash. I play keyboards in Wooden Ships.
And I'm Dusty. I play bass guitar.
We're on tour for just over 2 weeks. I mean, just over 3 weeks. 20 shows in 22 days. And this is show number 10. We had a really good time in Sweden. We played 2 shows there in Gothenburg and Stockholm. And it was our second time being there in a long time, and it was really great.
And that's even where the J came from in our name. It was to just as a nod to Swedish rock, to make our name look Swedish.
The band started in San Francisco, and there's sort of 2 versions of the band. The earliest part was Ripley, who plays guitar, and he recruited a bunch of non-musicians, people who didn't really know how to play their instruments, to come and jam with them. I was one of them, and we played together for a couple of years. We never recorded anything, we never played any shows, but we would have fun playing music together. And then that fell apart, and then a couple years later, he recruited Dusty to play bass and our drummer Omar, and that's when things really started to take off. That's when we decided to play shows, make a record, and go on from there.
We all come from a variety of backgrounds, I think, like very, very diverse. I myself, I don't know, classic rock I think we all share. But pretty much every other kind of music.
But you played a lot of jazz,
classical, everything, really. I worked in an underground club called Commotion. If anyone worked there, it was an anarchist collective. And I spent a lot of my free time there. Just whatever band happened to come through is what I got to listen to. That was what I was doing musically at the time. Also, I play in a lot of bands. So that's the other music I was listening to at the time, was the music I was playing in.
Yeah, I wasn't really doing any music. I was working as a geologist, and when I was in graduate school, I used to play guitar for fun, and that was about all I was doing. But I really loved music and would always go out and see whatever band was coming through town. So
the music was supposed to be primitive, so what you bring to it isn't necessarily your skill with the instrument or your familiarity with music. The idea is to play something very, very simple and learn that one thing very, very, very well. Very, very, very simple, though. And that's always been a guiding focus of the band, is to play very, very simply.
You know, when Dusty and Omar are playing, they get locked into grooves, and then it's like you can almost play. I can play almost any note and it sounds good, just because the rhythm is so tight and brings you to another place. And it's just, I don't know, it just becomes inspired at that point. Well, I think over the last 7 or 8 years, I've learned how to play the keyboards to a certain extent. But we were talking the other day, and I was telling Dusty, like, I still don't know like the basic blues progression. You know, blues music is
1-4-5.
Is built around 1-4-5, and that means nothing to me. But you know, because the music that I play just comes from another place. It doesn't come from where everyone else has put it before.
I think a difference with the other bands I've played in is that this album, we didn't end up with 1,000 copies in our closet the way most bands do, I think. And I think that's, with the original 10-inch, that was part of the motivation, I think, to give it away, is that I've played in a lot of bands, and so has Ripley, and it's sort of depressing. You make a record, you might make 500 copies, and you try to sell them at shows or get music stores to sell them, and you end up with a lot of copies that no one would ever buy, I guess. So the idea with the 10-inch, before the self-titled album, was anyone that wants one, let them have a copy. In fact, we would even pay shipping for the first, until we realized that started costing quite a lot of money. But then we asked if people would give us money for shipping, and we'd send them a copy. And then with the self-titled album, that's one difference with the other bands I've been in, is that actually we didn't have to worry about selling it. Holy Mountain, who put it out, and the distribution was very supportive. I think that the recordings have gotten more, you know, maybe more professional. The first album, the first 2 albums are, I don't think lo-fi, but they're sort of mid-fi. They're done sort of primitively. We self-recorded the first 2 albums. So the next album was done in a professional studio, and then the fourth album as well, and they're cleaner recordings. I don't know if they capture differently the music that we play, but they are higher quality.
But yeah, I think each record, I mean, it's capturing the music at that moment, and there's a lot of improvising in our music, and so it always sounds a little different every time we play it. And so, you know, there might be a progression with the records. I can't tell myself, but you know, the main thing is just that when we're playing, we're just trying to capture what we're doing that day or that, you know, that month that we're recording, and let that, you know, be a timestamp of how the music is at that moment more than anything else. I find that, like, when we're learning new songs, the best way to do it is we'll just start playing, and 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, we'll just be playing the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, a lot of times Ripley will come to practice with a guitar riff, and we'll jam on it for a whole practice, maybe several practices, and it just sort of comes together as a song then at some point.
But yeah, for the first 3, 4, 5 years, we would play a couple hours every week, and so we got really comfortable with playing with each other and what we could each bring to the band. And now Dusty and I still live in San Francisco, but the other two, Omar and Ripley, moved to Portland, Oregon in the last couple of years, so we don't see each other frequently enough. Playing keyboard, I don't have to feel totally comfortable, because I can always start exploring during the middle of a song if things aren't working the way I want them to. I can simplify it, and that was the other thing I was going to say about our music, is that it's always been about keeping it simple, and, you know, simplifying things is how we always do it. So when we're working on a song, we might find, you know, like I might play like 4 notes or 5 notes or something, and then decide, like, oh, I'll just play 2 of those. That sounds so much better, just to simplify it down to those 2 notes. When we first started playing together, we would talk about how Velvet Underground's Sister Ray was a really cool song, because they'd play it for 30, 40 minutes at a time, and it would always sound different, but even though they were playing it for so long, it was never boring. And so that's what I always think about when I'm performing, is just to bring something interesting to the music, to the song, but not have it, you know, become boring or drag on in any way. Yeah, I always think of it as, like, you know, combining like emotional and spiritual and physical responses in like a new, unique, surprising way. And if that's happening, then that's a psychedelic experience.
Yeah, I was noticing that maybe our song structure is sort of jazz in a way. It's sort of like rock and jazz have a lot in common anyway, but it's verse, solo verse, extended solo section, and end it with another verse is pretty much sums up our songs, and that's pretty much how a lot of 60s like trio and quartet pieces were. So in that sense, we follow that song structure. But I was thinking another thing I'm inspired by is live music. Just seeing bands. I never have seen the Me Puppets until recently live, and live they just blew me away. Really inspired me. Seeing them do also covers of the Sloop John B, for instance. It's a Beach Boys tune, but it's pretty amazing. And then also touring with Cave and seeing them play live, and listening to, just being overwhelmed by their sound. They're a band out of Chicago. Just local bands that we play with, I'm almost always inspired by. I love live music. The Shjips were another, when I first saw them in San Francisco.
I'm always inspired by nature, so I mean, right before we recorded our last record, Back to Land, I spent a week on the Oregon coast and would just spend the days walking the beaches or walking through the woods, and just, you know, separating myself from music and other sounds, and just listening to the rhythm of the earth. And that's one of the things that always inspires me. We do hear that from time to time, actually. Last month we were in Southern California, and one of the bands we played with told me a story about how they were on tour and only had like 2 CDs in the car, and one of them was our second record, Dose, and so they listened to it so much that, you know, by the end of it, they were just like, yeah, Wooden Shjips, we got to do more like what they're doing. And I'm not sure how they're doing it, but but it was really cool to hear.
We play quite a lot off of Dose still, even though that was 2009. We still play half that album, which is 3 songs. There's only 5 songs on that album, but I think it's an album. I don't know. Dose is one of my favorites, but it's still like Back to Land. We're I'm gonna play a. How's that?
Which song? Other Stars?
Yeah. No.
Ruins?
Ruins. Oh, no, not that either. Dang it.
Ghouls?
Jeepers. It must be. I only know how to play them these days. I don't hardly even know what they're called. Other Stars.
Other Stars, yeah. That's a
it's
fun
got
one
a gallop
to play.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ruins as well. I like playing that one.
Yeah. One of them has a swing. Most of our songs don't swing at all. But on Back to Land, Ruins is I think our swingingest song of all, if there is one. It has a little bit of a swing to it, so that's sort of fun. It's closest to jazz, I think. Sinai, she has traveled with us almost every tour for the last several years, I think, and she has usually done live video mixing for us.
She's filming the tour as well.
Unfortunately, she couldn't make it on this tour, so we have recordings that she has made that we're projecting. But typically, we would tour with her and she'll mix live video to the music.
Well, usually the first thing we do when we get back to San Francisco is get a very good burrito.
Yeah.
Missing the home, you know, you miss your favorites from back home, like food for sure. But yeah, when we get back home, like sometimes when I get off tour, I don't have any plans and I end up doing nothing for a couple weeks, and that's a bad thing to do. So I haven't gotten it all worked out yet, but I'm trying to get some activities lined up, get some friends together, and we're going to be, my birthday is going to be next week when we're on tour, so I'm going to have a birthday party when I get home and see all my friends at that. That's one of my plans. We've done enough touring over the last few months for America.
Yeah, in December we did the East Coast, and then before this tour we did the West Coast of the United States in a couple weekends. So I think we're pretty much have done that for now.
We haven't talked about when that might happen, but maybe after the summer we'll try to get that started.
Yeah, also when we get home, the day after we get home on this tour is my birthday, and I'm going to go bowling. That's my plan.